Jake stood in the doorway of their once-manned home, his arms crossed over his chest as he watched Lauren smirk, the smirk of a woman who believed she had won. "You're not enough for me." Her voice was cool, decisive, final. For a moment, Jake said nothing. He didn't beg, didn't argue, didn't even flinch. His dark eyes remained locked on hers, unreadable, unmoved. Lauren let out a small laugh, tilting her head. "Nothing to say?" she teased, running a manicured hand through her golden waves. "Not even gonna fight for me?" Jake's lips twitched in something resembling a smile. "Why would I fight for someone who's already lost?" Lauren's smirk faltered for half a second before she scoffed, stepping past him. She sauntered down the driveway, her red-bottom heels clicking against the pavement, the crisp evening air filled with the soft hum of an idling engine. Jake didn't move. He didn't need to. He had already won. Ryan was waiting behind the wheel of a sleek black Maserati, the engine purring like a predator waiting to strike. He leaned back, sunglasses still on despite the dimming sky, one hand lazily gripping the wheel. A Rolex gleamed on his wrist, his shirt unbuttoned just enough to showcase a gold chain that screamed, "Look at me, I'm rich." Lauren slid into the passenger seat with a practiced ease, pulling down the visor to check her reflection. She didn't even glance back at Jake as the car pulled away. Jake exhaled slowly. Let her go. Let her believe she traded up. Let her enjoy every second of her better life. Because what she didn't know, what she never bothered to question, was that Ryan's entire world was built on lies. And Jake already knew the truth. As the days passed, Lauren wasted no time flaunting her upgrade. Her social media overflowed with snapshots of her new life. Champagne glasses clinking on yachts, designer shopping sprees, candlelit dinners at five-star restaurants. Each post was an unspoken taunt, a carefully curated display meant to show Jake just how irrelevant he was now. She wanted him to feel small, to feel regret. But Jake felt nothing but patience, because while Lauren was busy gloating, Jake was already setting the pieces in motion. He wasn't going to scream. He wasn't going to lash out. No, revenge was best served cold. And when the moment was right, he would make sure Lauren watched as the world she betrayed him for collapsed in front of her eyes. She thought she was winning. She had no idea she was running straight into a trap. Lauren's new life played out like a highlight reel for the world to admire. A weekend in the Maldives, a Chanel shopping spree in Paris, a hand resting on Ryan's expensive suit as they toasted glasses at a rooftop bar. Jake watched from the sidelines, never commenting, never reacting. If she wanted him to feel like a fool, she was wasting her time. Because while she was busy celebrating, he was busy planning. The first step had been simple: watch and learn. Jake needed to understand Ryan inside out before he made his move. He started with public records, business filings, and social media footprints. The surface told the story Ryan wanted the world to believe. A self-made millionaire, a sharp investor, a man who always won. But the deeper Jake dug, the more cracks he found beneath the glossy exterior. Unpaid debts, fake business fronts, a history of lawsuits all settled just before they reached trial. And then he found the real jackpot, a string of shell companies Ryan had used to move money around. To the untrained eye, it looked like a normal investment portfolio. But Jake wasn't just anyone. He knew how to follow the money. And what he found? Ryan was drowning. The yachts, the designer suits, the penthouses, they weren't symbols of success. They were borrowed time. Jake smirked to himself. Lauren had left him for a man whose empire was built on sand, and she had no idea the tide was about to come in. But Jake wasn't going to expose Ryan just yet. That would be too easy, too quick. No, he was going to let Lauren fall in love with this fantasy, let her sink into this illusion until she was fully committed, until she needed this lifestyle. Only then would he set the fire and watch it burn. The perfect bait. Jake wasn't just gathering evidence, he was laying breadcrumbs too. A few well-placed whispers to the right people, a couple of anonymous tips about business opportunities for Ryan. Investors eager to get in on a supposedly lucrative deal began showing interest. Ryan, blinded by his own ego, took the bait. He made moves he couldn't afford, leveraged money he didn't have. And Jake made sure every single decision Ryan made was watched by the wrong people. People who didn't forgive debts. People who collected. It was only a matter of time now. Lauren kept posting, kept flaunting. She never once wondered how Ryan could afford to spend money like water. She never thought to ask the right questions. Jake almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The first fracture. Then, one night, the first sign of trouble appeared. Lauren had posted another lavish dinner, white tablecloth, gold-rimmed plates, an ocean view. But something was different this time. Ryan wasn't in the photo. Instead of the usual radiant, carefree smile, Lauren's expression was tighter, her eyes not quite meeting the camera. The caption, "Some things money can't fix." Jake leaned back in his chair, tapping a finger against his desk. It was starting. That same week, another post appeared. Lauren, alone in their massive bedroom, a glass of wine in hand. Silence says more than words ever could. Jake didn't need her to spell it out. Ryan was unraveling. Again, because the next phase of Jake's plan was already in motion. And when the time came, Lauren wouldn't just see the fall, she would live it. Jake had always believed that patience was the most underrated weapon in revenge. A sudden strike might bring momentary satisfaction, but a slow, methodical unraveling, that was art. Lauren was still floating in the illusion of her perfect life, but Jake could already see the fault lines forming beneath her feet. And like a spider watching its prey struggle in its web, he knew it was only a matter of time before she realized the truth. She just wasn't ready to see it yet. Not fully, but she would. And when she did, there would be no escape. A storm behind closed doors. From the outside, Lauren and Ryan's life still appeared flawless. The expensive nights out, the designer shopping, the trips to places most people could only dream of. But Jake had noticed something. The posts were becoming fewer. The captions less cocky, and then there were the likes. Lauren had once collected adoration like currency, every post filled with praise from her friends, her followers, even strangers. But now the comments were different. Didn't you wear that dress last month? No new vacation pics? Hope everything's okay. Ryan isn't in these anymore. Trouble in paradise? Jake could picture her reading them, her manicured fingers tightening around her phone, her perfect world shifting beneath her. But she wouldn't admit it. Not yet. She was still clinging to the fantasy, still refusing to see. But the world had already begun to take notice. The financial noose tightens. Ryan had been living on borrowed time, and Jake had made sure that time was running out. It started with little things. Small inconveniences that built up, brick by brick, until they formed an impenetrable wall. First, a few of Ryan's investments started going sideways. A business deal that was supposed to be a guaranteed win suddenly fell through. A friend he had counted on for a loan mysteriously backed out. And then the bank calls started. The mortgage, the credit cards, the luxury car payments. Lauren might not have understood the depth of Ryan's financial mess, but she felt it. The black Amex that once bought anything with a single tap declined. The exclusive club membership that gave her access to the city's elite suspended due to missed payments. The luxury shopping spree she had planned canceled when Ryan forgot to transfer money into their joint account. Lauren wasn't stupid. She might have been blind to Ryan's reality at first, but she could sense the change. The tension in his jaw when the waiter brought the bill. The way he snapped at her when she asked about a new vacation. The way his phone rang constantly, but he stopped answering. She had traded Jake for a better life. Now that life was crumbling right in front of her. The first signs of panic. Jake watched from the sidelines, savoring every moment. Lauren had always carried herself with an air of superiority. She had believed she was untouchable. But now she was slipping. It started with the way she carried herself in public. The confidence she had once worn, like an expensive fur coat, was fading. She looked over her shoulder more. She checked her phone constantly. Her posts became desperate. No matter what happens, always stay strong. Hard times show who really stands by your side. And then the inevitable, a message. Lauren, Jake, can we talk? Jake stared at the text for a long time. Not yet. She wasn't ready to break just yet. So he did what he knew would drive her crazy. He left it hungry. The breaking point approaches. Ryan was running out of options. Jake knew it, and more importantly, so did Ryan. The men he had borrowed money from weren't the type to forgive and forget. Jake had made sure of that. A week later, news broke. A well-known real estate mogul was under federal investigation for fraud. His name? Ryan Carter. Lauren woke up to a world where her luxurious life was suddenly under scrutiny. The mansion, bought with dirty money. The vacations, paid for with funds that didn't belong to Ryan. The entire image she had built. A lie. Jake smiled as he watched it all unfold. This wasn't just revenge. This was justice. And Lauren had no idea that the worst was yet to come. Jake wasn't done, not yet, because the final blow, that would be personal. That would be delicious. And it was coming sooner than she could ever imagine. Lauren always believed she had an instinct for survival. She thought she could read people, predict outcomes, and position herself on the winning side. But she had never met someone like Jake. She had no idea that from the moment she stepped into Ryan's car and smirked at her ex-husband, she had already lost. And now she was beginning to realize it. The walls closed in. Lauren's world wasn't just shifting anymore, it was imploding. First came the frozen accounts. One moment, she was sipping her morning espresso, scrolling through luxury handbags online. The next, her card was declined. She tried another, it declined. Her phone buzzed, a message from the bank. Urgent, your accounts have been temporarily frozen due to an ongoing federal investigation. Please contact your financial institution immediately. Lauren's fingers trembled. She barely noticed Ryan storming into the room, his face a shade too pale, his jaw clenched so tight it looked painful. They're going through everything, he muttered. Every transaction, every business dealing. Someone set me up. Lauren barely heard him. Her heart pounded as she refreshed her banking app. 0, 0, 0. Panic clawed at her throat. This is a mistake, a misunderstanding. But deep down, she knew. Jake, public humiliation. Before she could even process the financial catastrophe, the media storm hit. Lauren had spent months carefully curating her image. Flawless photos, expensive outings, posts dripping with thinly veiled jabs at her old life. She had wanted the world to envy her. No, she was trending for all the wrong reasons. Her phone lit up with notifications. But the comments weren't admiration anymore. I guess that rich boyfriend wasn't so rich after all. Gold digger karma hits different. Maybe she can call her ex for a loan. Oh, wait. She burned that bridge. Lauren's stomach twisted. Her inbox was full, but not with sympathy. Brands she had partnered with, cutting ties, friends who had hyped her up, ghosting her. The same people who once envied her, laughing at her downfall. She had been a queen. Now she was a joke. Ryan's true colors. Lauren had always believed that money made a man powerful. She was wrong, because now that Ryan had none, she finally saw him for what he truly was. Desperate, angry, weak. At first, he tried to control the narrative. We'll fix this, he assured her. They don't have proof. Then, when the news worsened, he snapped. This is your fault, he spat one night, slamming a whiskey glass onto the marble countertop. You flaunted our life all over social media. You made us a target. Lauren recoiled. Me? You're the one who built everything on lies. Ryan let out a bitter laugh. You were too damn stupid to notice. The words cut deeper than she expected. Because maybe, just maybe, he was right. She had never once questioned anything. She had seen the luxury and assumed she was safe. Now she was paying the price, and Ryan was already looking for a way to save himself. Reaching out to Jake, Lauren sat alone in the empty penthouse, her hands gripping the edge of the kitchen island. Everything was gone. The luxury, the stability, the fantasy. Ryan was missing, probably making deals to cut his own losses. She had no one but the man she had abandoned. Her hands shook as she typed the message. Lauren, Jake, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Can we please talk? She stared at the screen, her pride screaming at her to delete it. Then she saw it, the read receipt. He had seen it, and he wasn't answering. The final blow. The next morning, the authorities arrived. The penthouse was raided. Ryan was dragged out in handcuffs. Lauren was left standing in the middle of the wreckage, tears streaking her once flawless face. The cameras caught everything. The former socialite, once draped in wealth and confidence, now clutching a single suitcase like a lost child. And just when she thought it couldn't get worse, her phone buzzed. A single text from Jake. You wanted luxury? Now you get to pay for it. Lauren dropped the phone. This wasn't just a fall from grace. As for when, and the worst part, she had done it to herself. Jake leaned back in his chair, watching the news coverage. He didn't feel guilt. Not even satisfaction. His closure. Lauren had thought she was winning. She had no idea she was never playing the game. But Jake had just checkmated them all. Lauren sat alone in a dingy motel room, staring blankly at the flickering television screen. The elegant designer dresses, the diamond jewelry, the champagne-filled nights. All of it was gone. She pulled her knees to her chest, her mind replaying everything that had happened. Ryan was in federal custody, his accounts had been seized, his businesses exposed as fraudulent. The lavish empire she had basked in, nothing but smoke and mirrors. And Jake had been behind it all. Her phone was dead, the charger long forgotten in the chaos of her fall. Not that it mattered. No one was calling. The same people who had once cheered her on, who had showered her with compliments and envy, had abandoned her the second the illusion shattered. She was a cautionary tale, now a viral joke. And the only person she had left to turn to, the man who had once loved her unconditionally, had blocked her. Jake's new beginning. Jake had never felt lighter. For months, he had carried the weight of betrayal, the sting of watching the woman he had once built a life with throw it all away for a fantasy. But now it was done. He wasn't angry anymore. He wasn't even bitter. He was free. The final piece of his plan had been simple. Once Ryan had been exposed, it had only taken one more anonymous tip to ensure that Lauren had nowhere to land. No hidden accounts, no sympathetic benefactors, no comfortable safety net. She had burned every bridge on her way up, and on the way down, she was completely alone. Jake took a deep breath as he looked around his new home. It wasn't a mansion, but it was his. His success hadn't come from deception or stolen wealth. It had come from hard work, from resilience, and he had no intention of wasting another second looking back. His phone buzzed, a message from someone who mattered. Not Lauren, a woman who saw his worth from the beginning. He smiled, grabbed his jacket, and stepped into the future. Lauren's final attempt. She couldn't accept it. Jake had to pick up. He had to hear her out. She borrowed the motel manager's phone and dialed the number she still knew by heart. Irene, then, the number you have dialed is no longer in service. Lauren's throat tightened. She lowered the phone, staring at it like it had personally betrayed her. Jake wasn't just ignoring her, he had erased her. Tears burned her eyes as she collapsed onto the motel bed. She had won once. She had stood at the top, looking down at the life she had so easily discarded. And now she had nothing, and no one was coming to save her. The best revenge, moving on. Jake never thought revenge would taste this quiet. It wasn't about gloating. It wasn't about rubbing salt in the wound. It was about peace. And as he drove toward his new life, a life without betrayal, without regret, he finally realized he had already won. And Lauren, she would spend the rest of her days realizing just how much she had lost.